I'm joined now live from the West Bank by Nour Odeh, the first female spokesperson for the Palestinian Authority. Not in that role any longer, but coming on and joining us here on GB News. Good evening. Thank you for coming on and joining us. Now, obviously, whatever happened last night at that hospital in Gaza, a lot of people were killed. There's a dispute as to what the number is, but a lot of people were killed. American intelligence, and I accept that Israel is a strong ally of America, but American intelligence suggests that at 6:59, 10 rockets were fired by Hamas from a cemetery quite close to that hospital, and that it was one of those that misfired, not an Israeli rocket. And this is something that the Israelis have pushed very hard today. Do you have any evidence that it was an Israeli rocket?
Well, I can tell you that journalists have been trying to get Israel to provide them with anything convincing so that they can adopt its version of the story, which has changed at least 3 times. A spokesperson for the Israeli Prime Minister's office initially admitted that there was an Israeli airstrike and that it had targeted what he said were Hamas terrorists and that it had killed several. And then he deleted that post on X. And then the story changed again, and they accused Hamas, and then they accused Islamic Jihad. So it's a bit difficult to take them for their word, especially given the fact that they've lied in previous incidents. So
whatever they say, okay, they're fine. Whatever they say. My point was, what proof do you have that it was an Israeli rocket that landed? It looks like in a car park, rather than a direct hit on the hospital.
Right. Well, that hospital was housing 3,000 Palestinians, families, mainly women and children and men, who had sought refuge in this hospital, which has been, by the way, providing health services to people in Gaza for over 140 years. So it's a place close to everyone's heart. And the Israelis knew that it was housing civilians because on Saturday, as the Church of Canterbury confirmed, the Israelis bombed next to the hospital. They called up the doctors, told them that was their warning. They needed to leave the premises, and the doctors were very clear that they cannot abandon their patients, that those patients would die if they left them or tried to evacuate them. The Pan-Arab networks were live when the airstrike happened. It was one of many.
Well, look, there are airstrikes. I don't dispute.
Please let me finish.
I don't dispute that there are civilians in Gaza being killed and wounded for one moment. But whatever the historical rights and wrongs of this, and we could go back to 1948 or go back many years before that if we chose to.
Even before, yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Whatever the rights and wrongs, whatever the passion on either side of this argument, do you accept that what happened on October the 7th, on that Saturday morning, with the incursion into Israel by Hamas terrorists and the slaughter of 1,300 innocent people was a barbaric and terrible act?
Well, first of all, I'm here in my personal capacity, and I'm here as an analyst. So my personal opinion is really entirely irrelevant. The value, I would hope, of my interview, yes, because the value of my presence for your viewers and listeners is context, is knowledge of the issues, knowledge of the players, knowledge of the context. That's why I accepted to be your guest. And you had asked me what proof there was, and what I was trying to tell you is that there are several credible human rights organizations on the ground. They are collecting evidence, video and photo and evidence on the ground. Nobody has been hindered from accessing the site. Nobody has been forbidden from collecting that evidence. And I have no doubt that there will be enough credible accounts from experts on what happened. But it's important for your viewers to know that in previous incidents where civilians were killed, and it was shocking, like the killing of Al Jazeera reporter Shireen Abu Akleh, our colleague and dear friend, In the beginning, Israel claimed it was Palestinian fire that killed her. And then they changed that story, and then they changed it again until they couldn't.
No, I understand. I understand that these arguments rage back and forth, and it goes on all of the time. I was simply asking about what happened on October the 7th with that incursion into Israel. But, I mean, when Hamas act and do what they do, are they legitimate representatives of the Palestinian people?
Well, no one group is a representative of the Palestinian people, just like no one party is a representative of all the British people, right? This is one group of many in Palestine. They have a following. And we have to explain also, to put in context, that Hamas is not just a military group, it is also a political group.
Yes.
It has a social and political agenda. And those two flanks of Hamas don't necessarily coordinate or know about each other's work. So the backing for Hamas would be on that basis, on the ideological agenda that it presented. And quite frankly, the Palestinian people, with Western pressure, have not been allowed to exercise their right to vote and choose their representatives for many years, because the West didn't want to try giving Palestinians
the last time
a free chance at elections again.
No, the last time they had an election, Hamas won the election, and quite comfortably. No, let me ask you. Let me ask you.
Is your argument that we can only have elections if the right people win? Is that how democracy works?
No. I'm merely
practice. So I'm just wondering.
I'm merely saying that they are seen by us to be, a strong representation of the Palestinian view, rightly or wrongly. A final thought, but the most important thought. We are where we are today. We are where we are today. There is a genuine risk of serious escalation and further heavy loss of life in Israel, in Gaza, and goodness knows where else in the region. What would you, in your personal capacity, what would you like to see happen next?
Well, I would like world leaders to be smarter, because right now what I see is complacency. What I see is lazy politics. What I see is a cop-out. Dumping more guns and more munitions, and clapping and cheering on as more bombs are dropped on 2.3 million people who are caged in an open-air prison is not the answer. And we've seen this time and again. We know it doesn't work. You cannot bomb your way into changing people's minds. The Americans couldn't do it. Others couldn't do it. It just wouldn't work. The core issue here is that an entire nation, the Palestinians in the West Bank and in Gaza, continue to be denied their right to be free, their right to have a country, a state of their own. And everybody wants to do anything but face that fact. And when the dust settles, when the Americans and the British go home after this war concludes, God knows with what kind of human toll, the Israelis will still have to do with the one inescapable truth, which is that Palestinians are still here and they still want to be free. And the only real and the easiest way for that conflict to end is to sit down and end the occupation, to be more invested in ending that occupation, and firing bombs, and demonizing an entire nation, and calling entire people human animals.
Many would say that actually they're not occupying Gaza at all. We could argue this forever, but
international legal experts would disagree.
But thank you